Hello, my name is Michael DeBruzzo, and I am presenting a lecture on the Iaabc and a history of unfair and discriminatory practices against dog trainers. Specifically, I'm going to highlight the damage that it's done to my career over about a 15-year period. My target audience is definitely lawmakers, countries where this organization is trying to be part of the legal system in certifying dog trainers. This is to bring awareness. I am not representing any company or organization or any place that employs me. This is my own experience and my own words. Also, I do not claim to be an extra special dog trainer. I certainly know dog trainers that are better than me, even in the videos that I am presenting. And there are dog trainers that that are much better in their respective fields. But I do consider myself an ethical dog trainer that represents the type of dog trainer, many dog trainers, humane, ethical dog trainers that are affected by unfair and discriminatory practices. So this is my story. I do encourage other dog trainers to share your own story as well. This is going to address a bunch of things. It's mostly going to show that the Iaabc, and there are other organizations too, but I could really only focus on one at a time here, tolerate a long-term systematic, we call it tortious interference against dog obedience trainers, like interrupting their careers, hurting business opportunities and such. And I'm presenting this as questions we seek to answer, to be clear. I'm seeking for people to answer these questions. So they cannot say I am accusing anyone of anything that was not necessarily proven. This is my evidence that I am showing, and it's designed for other entities to make the decisions for themselves. So that's my little disclaimer. Everything I'm saying is allegedly, okay? So do they tolerate the long-term systematic tortious interference against dog obedience trainers? I'm going to talk about, do veterinary behaviorists kill dogs in high numbers and then blame dog obedience trainers for the failures? And we want to differentiate between those two. Dog obedience trainers are those that are actually train obedience, by definition, right? I'm not going to change any words out there, so there's dog obedience trainers that are training dogs to obey owners, and then there's also veterinary behaviorists that are mostly just coaching on behaviors and are not trained in obedience and helping owners with obedience. I'm also going to be talking about Mike Shikasio, who was one of my personal experiences while he was president of the Iaabc. How he abuse his position to exploit my proprietary knowledge as a dog obedience trainer as his own, and then use it to market against the very same type of trainers that he stole it from without permission. You be the judge. Does the Iaabc practice intellectual dishonesty to mislead the public and support its agenda? Did Dr. Edguardo Fernandez demonstrate tried libel against the published work of Stephen Lindsay and demonstrate conflict of interest fraud by pairing up with the same organizations that also misrepresent Stephen Lindsay's work to offer paid webinars on his competing version? You need to answer that. I think I have important information here. Does Karen Overall use her position as editor-in-chief of the Journal of Veterinary Behavior to unethically support her own agenda and unfairly influence the veterinary community to not recommend dog obedience trainers? does Elsevier Publishing, who also published the Journal of Veterinary Behavior, which Karen overall is the editor-in-chief, and also happens to publish her books on behavior that compete against Stephen Lindsay's work, are they doing enough to monitor her conflicts of interest? Does the American Veterinary Society of Animal Behavior use its lack of knowledgeable oversight for unethical agendas? Do IAABC members use illegal bullying tactics when their practices are publicly questioned? Should the U.S. government step in to cease unfair marketing practices of IAABC members? Should the IAABC and other organizations that operate in a similar manner be trusted to act in the best interest of dog-owning public's welfare? A warning to anyone watching this who doesn't have a big interest in it. I speak pretty slow and I give important information. I'm not here to entertain anyone. If you're curious, I suggest to put the speed of your video on double speed. I kind of talk like a normal person if you put it at double speed, and you will be able to understand me. I'm going to start this first just by showing typical social media posts. I have never ever liked to call people out by name if I think it's really not significant and it's going to hurt their career, even if I completely disagree with what they are doing. I feel like the person has to be someone important enough that is making decisions that are affecting a lot of people. So in this case, I'm just showing a typical IAABC member, all right, there, and is also a member of Association for Pet Dog Trainers and the Pet Professional Guild. I blurred out everything unless someone's like a super duper detective, because it does not really matter. The kind of stuff that is just typically posted to this day all the time. And it's okay. These organizations allow their members to post this. So this is a typical one, that this is shared by this, by this person. I forgot to, that's the person who made the post. I forgot to blur that out. But here is a post. This is not dog training. This is abuse. So when looking at a trainer, always ask what tools they use. If they include choke, pinch, or choke collars, do your dog a favor and keep looking. So what she did is she took 3 different types of training collars and is just saying, and automatically any dog trainer that uses those tools is an abuser. And that's okay with these organizations that they do this. Now remember, this represents a lot of professional dog trainers that also pay a lot of money, go to trade schools to learn how to use these humanely. And I also want to point out that this particular person's school is the School of Hard Knocks, right? They went to the School of Hard Knocks. But these organizations, you do not need any formal training. In order to be a member of these, you pretty much just take a test, all right? That's very important. Agree by their guidelines, and you can really get a lot of letters after your name that sound impressive. And now suddenly you are a dog trainer, or you are a dog behaviorist. Ethical trainers take action against abusers. I and other trainers that do use these tools are generally the first people to actually fight and bring attention to dog trainers that are using any tools, including the tools that they use in an abusive way. IAABC members tend to take action against competitors. It is a very big difference, and we need to make that known. Now, one of my triggers for this was actually I was sharing information that I got from a Facebook post, which I'm not even going to put on, all right? There were 3 trainers on there that were talking about behavioral euthanasia, all right? I did not share their names. I just shared exactly what they said, the information that they said that was concerning me. One of them was saying, these are IAABC members. I do not know at least one of their backgrounds at all. But this person stated they had a tragic day early in their career where they suggested to 7 dog owners in 2 days to euthanize their dog for behavioral reasons. Also, in this podcast, they also mention telling owners to euthanize their dogs for, for separation anxiety and general fearfulness, being fearful of eating dog food out of an egg crate and a dog that is scared of a tomato can, and therefore they felt the dogs were suffering and they had to euthanize the dog. This trainer then came to my page. I never mentioned her, and was saying I was unethical for quoting something that she said, and I apologized to her that I hurt her feelings. I promised that I would apologize to her. I never meant anyone to know her name. I'm still not going to put her name in here, but the thing is, what she was telling me, regardless, and there's a link here, someone can go to it and you can just see their own information, their own words. I wasn't trying to put everyone down, but the thing is this has been typical. In general, this is what I've seen has been typical from that community, which is why I posted it and why I was concerned. This stems back to my first experience. I'm going to go back I think this is about 15 years to show there is a trend. In my community, there's a thing called Maddie's Fund that gives grants, and they gave, I believe, I don't know if this was the exact amount, but it was a lot of money. I think it was around $1 million or several $100,000, dollars to the veterinary behavioral group at Cornell to come in at a local shelter and access, it's meant to help non-kill shelters. And they came in, this team gets paid to go over there. And it was at I'll actually put a link. I will put a link when this is public, to help this shelter. And at this shelter, a local shelter, it was Putnam Humane Society, they came in, and their solution to help all of these dogs in this no-kill shelter was to basically, by their guidelines, was going to be to kill. It was something I figured, something like 90% of the dogs just fell into the standards to euthanize them, which I thought was really wrong, considering that these were supposed to be the experts that were trying to save their lives. But it included, similar to what I saw on this other webinar, which is why it disturbed me, euthanizing dogs in shelters, not only just for any type of aggression without even really trying to help them, but also for fear. Like, even if a puppy was very fearful, they were going to be euthanized. And this was with a grant, money that was designed to help non-kill shelters. So it was a concern. This is my experience, just to show things that happen in real life. I did offer to help. And I was ignored by the shelter because there was, I'm not going to say her name, it's a real person, I can prove it. There was a trainer certified through the Iaabc and CPDT that was helping and evaluating all the dogs over there. And there was one dog in particular, his name was Hunky, that one of the shelter workers wanted to adopt. And she wrote a behavioral evaluation saying, no, this dog is too aggressive and should be euthanized. I offered to help with the dog, and she told the board, with no real reason besides her, probably because I was a competitor, that the dog would only have a 2% chance of succeeding if the dog went to me, because I was a punishment-based trainer and I used all these tools. And there was a smear campaign against me for just offering to help. This is going way back. Anyway, I'm not going to go through these videos. That's why I have a link on this page. I put videos to show I was clearly helping aggressive dogs humanely years before this, starting, my YouTube videos were, I think this was like in 2006, 2007. Then eventually through a court order, I did get the dog. The dog's name was Hunky. I was able to get the dog, and my evaluation was, this trainer said the dog had rage and all these other kind of things. It's actually in the writing of this video. My assessment was something that was taboo because I said the dog had dominance aggression, because that's from an from an ethology point of view, that's what caused the dog to bite. And I have science to back it up. And instead of alpha rolling and doing all these things that they said that that was going to happen, I worked with the dog using ethology and mostly through relationship. And even though they thought I was going to alpha roll the dog, most of this stuff was fixed through play. All right. Here we go. Hunky, filled with anxiety, perhaps rage, in the canine version of PTSD. A lengthy rehabilitation program will have a small chance of success, blah, blah, blah. It's on here. I filmed because I could not get any of the board members to work at that were brainwashed by this trainer to even come and watch what I was going to do. I shot some videos and I basically demonstrated through play how to form the right relationship where I was leading, he was following, and also building trust and a bond. Something to this day that these organizations still will not even want to hear, and they basically do the equivalent of educational gatekeeping. For instance, there's a prominent trainer on social media named Ivan Balabanov, who is famous for specializing in just this exact thing. And even though there's no history ever of him being an abusive trainer, none of these organizations will even allow their members to even listen to this guy, or he will never be invited. This is even 15 years later, things that trainers know about relationships. And when we speak of words like relationship and dominance from a point of view, from an ethology point of view, we're called dominance-based trainers that must be alpha rolling the dogs and stuff like that. They bait and switch and they're given false information. I'm not going to play this video, but I did do a process where I showed humanely using the tools that showed, that they say causes me to be abusive, actually work on the dog all the way to the very end, where you can see, basically see, that's fine, Hunky, doing off-leash control and obedience around, here we go, here goes good old Hunky, with the adopter, doing obedience. We use muzzles to be safe. All these are aggression cases. The dog is happy. He went and lived a really good life with the adopter. No problems, no bites, no rage. He just needed to be diagnosed properly and getting a chance to work with an obedience trainer. That was really it. Also, what I did after that, just to show that this wasn't a fluke, I adopted their dog the next dog that they wanted to euthanize. The board was talking about euthanizing him. It was a dog named Darren. I'm not going to play this. He was there for 8 years, and they said he was not adoptable. And he was basically had very bad fear aggression. And same thing, we worked with him. We did not have to use a shock collar or anything like that, but just because I do use those, these Iaabc trainers didn't want me to take them. We worked with him, and he got very social with lots of people after no one even touching him for 8 years, being stuck in a kennel. And guess what? He also got adopted to the same person that took the other dog, Hunky, and they became old men together, got along, were loose in a house together, and lived a long life, all right? So this is something that happened, all right? This is something that happened, showing that these veterinary behaviorists, even with millions of dollars, are killing dogs. And I'm going to show that they're blaming it on the trainers like me. So that was really going on. So I'm going to circle back to that, but I have to talk about my experience with the president of the Iaabc at a time, just to show the discrimination and the unfair treatment towards trainers like me. This is just my experience, all right? In this experience, I could not I have the emails, multiple attempts to get this certified trainer from the IAABC to even watch me, to even show that I wasn't doing anything inhumane. I couldn't even get the president of the shelter to come over and watch what I was doing because of what this person was saying. This certified trainer was also going to local veterinary hospitals and public forums and saying that this dog should not go because I am an abuser because I use these tools. So of course, when I was contacted by Mike Shikasio years later, who was president of the IAABC, with interest to see how I trained, I was actually very excited. And you can see there's an email from him saying he would pay to watch what I am doing, and I do not have to worry that he's not. What did he say? He's not going to have to. He's not going to do any weird, purely positive politicking from him. And of course, I said, you don't have to pay. Come for free. I told him what time the classes are. I put a picture of Mike because when I looked him up, I couldn't find anything of him even really training a dog. If you go on to his stuff now, before he met me, you can look at this date, which is significant, November 2016. I only found a video of him really doing what I would call obedience with one dog. And he's kind of holding the leash wrapped up in his hand. It doesn't say how he trained the dog. And that's all that I could really find. There was other stuff for him working. He would do house calls with people and like giving their dogs treats and showing dogs getting used to him, giving treats, but nothing showing mechanics and handling a leash and doing obedience. So anyway, he comes, right? And he comes and he watches, and I'll show you basically what he saw. This video is from the exact time period. I got to look at the date that he came. I was doing very large group classes and multiple trainers working with me at a time. We're doing aggressive dogs in high volume for a lot of years. And what we're going to see during this time period is we're going to see, if we watch, he came and watched that a lot of the training with these aggressive dogs,
your leash handling,
had to do with leash handling, of properly being able to manage the dogs, handle the leashes. I believe this video was before he came to visit.
proper length.
Commands and obedience.
Go ahead.
Remember, if you put your dog in a formal obedience command, that you follow through.
And you would have to watch it, right? Everything is about the leash handling, how to handle the leash. It was a very big part of the training, how I managed and did the aggressive dogs. He was also there and participated and watched how we train. Let's see. Oh, I think I'm missing one video here. How we do the protection training as well. And I'm putting this video here too because this is significant. Is with the protection dogs, we were also with tools. There's an e-collar, there's a prong collar. We're doing these things, various leash locks and sliding on the leash and handling dogs in a safe way for the purpose of using training equipment and handling the dog safely. I am a trainer that teaches people how to humanely use punishment, like a lot of other trainers, in a way that's effective and humane as a professional. This is what these things were, why they were developed over lots of trial and error with aggressive dogs over many, many years for the purpose of teaching people how to do obedience training humanely. All right, so you can see all the tools there. These videos, I'm not going to watch them all, but as you can see, she's able to control the dog.
Glide over her zip hand, which is that lead hand there, her right hand and her locked hand. And you don't. Good. There you go. Comes back up. She locked. She can pet him. Good.
Here's the prong collar.
Now she wants to switch on.
There's the prong collar. There's an e-collar, and everything was meant for safety and how to use the equipment as gently as possible to get results in the process of teaching the dog. Patterns, all right? Mostly patterns that the dog was going to be able to utilize later on further in the training. The speed ahead, as you can see, using the leash techniques to control the dog, to call the dog back. What it was for, sorry if I was scrolling around, I don't know where the videos are over here, was to teach the dog a concept called, basically there's a concept that's called signaled omission punishment conditioning, which is designed to teach an aggressive dog control and to obey without needing to get punished ever, and to do it pretty happily, non-abusive way. And this has been getting done for years and years and years and years.
Good boy.
All right.
Good boy. Okay.
What?
Wag and tail, no abuse, no punishment. There's a process using science that we have been doing. There's nothing that we are doing that can constitute abuse that was really going on. I'm not going to play all these. It's just to show that videos going back way, 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 way. It's the same thing. Everything's standardized. Always have an open door. I have videos of the dogs living home, living good lives. And that's basically what happened. All right. I'm going to kind of fast forward over here. So Mike came over, and I thought that this was going to be a chance to, he said he was open-minded about no positive politicking. I thought it was my chance to really collaborate and be able to finally show some humane ways someone can do punishment if they needed a place to learn and stuff like that. Anyway, basically what happened, as you could see here, he visited over here on the 19th. I didn't hear from him again to over a month and a half later. He sent me a link about something. You could see this is what we were talking about dog training, license, legislation. It was one of the many things we were talking about our concerns. But what he was actually doing in the meantime over here was taking things. 1 week, I found out later, other people told me this, 1 week after he visited, he's promoting his first conference with his magically acquired leash techniques, and I have screenshots, and I'm not going to go through the videos because I have free videos up years before he came for free, showing the things that he's charging people for, going around on these circuits and doing these defensive leash handling techniques that he is getting paid for by these organizations. These organizations, they pay him for continuing education. This was the president, came over to talk to me. Watch the video. It's very easy to prove. He's been doing these for so long that he basically exploited, he exploited everything, and within like a year of him doing it, it's literally insane. He's going to from not doing any conferences at all, he's doing over 30 cities in the world, these giant conferences. But there's a big problem with this, right? I really honestly would not have cared. And I did not care for a lot of years, all right? Until things start kind of where he starts kind of unethically turning against what I represent as a trainer and others. He starts, he's doing these, and this is from, he was doing these paired up with, I forget the other trainer's name. She's on here, but they are saying in punishment-based dog training, the leash is used not just as a restraint, but as a way to inflict pain or startle. And many lessons about dog training include how to handle a leash to get the most force in a precise way. All right. He was over there. He knew what I was doing. So anyway, basically, in all of his advertisements I find over the internet, he's saying Michael Shikasio and Grisha Stewart separately noticed that important skill gap in modern dog training and have been developing and teaching their own leash handling skills. And now many people know one or both skills. So he basically came and visited, and within a week he started doing these seminars. And it took me and other trainers working together years to put together systematic ways to handle the leash that we can repeat and teach multiple people. He just kind of magically said that he acquired these one day, that he's been developing for years. And this was, he saw me in 2016. This is still going on, 2022, saying these things. So not only that, he was basically, as I started checking all of his things, there's a lot more to Mike Shikasio, than this Mike Shikasio thing, but I feel like it has to be addressed because I'm sure this stuff is happening. Actually, I know this is happening to other trainers and experts, but he was basically ripping, everything in his seminars was either ripped from spending a day with me, or he mentioned that he liked my website and the videos. Here's me, we're teaching a class with real dogs about how to double handle. He's basically doing all the same things here, from old stuff, teaching people how to handle, dogs that come after you in training based off of actual really lunging dogs. But then him, not only is he teaching it immediately without experience, he is teaching it dangerously wrong by missing a few little things here. I'm going to flip around here. And this is important because we're talking about the safety of consumers. When I was doing this stuff, it was based off of working with real dogs. So you can see here in the video, I was doing with real dogs. And here we're going to have like real dogs lunging right here. All right. But what Mike did in his hastiness to just try to copy something without learning it, because I help and promote trainers to do these things, was he did it very wrong. A big part of everything that we were doing is when we're handling the leash is that you have to have a palm up when you're doing a lot of these techniques. I'm not going to go too much into it, but there's a major, you see his palm down here in his first promotion a week later after visiting, and his hand away from the leash to try to teach how to protect yourself from a lunging dog or otherwise stop a lunging dog. And it's, of course, in every single one of his videos, he butchered it enough where he made something very dangerous, right? Where it is emphasized that you have to actually, to do this, have a palm up and start from your own hand so you never miss the leash and you could catch a dog because the pressure is coming across your palm and you can always catch it, all right? Instead, what he's teaching is people with a palm down to come and try to grab a leash with a thumb down, putting all the pressure on a thumb, potentially not only breaking the thumb, but the person now getting attacked anyway, with their thumb broken. And then because he was I'm sure he was not paying attention and watching still videos, instructing all of these poor middle-aged people that are paying for something that they could find out for free to not only do this, that this will be enough if they brace themselves to protect themselves from getting attacked, which he obviously I don't think he's ever been attacked because the dog is just going to come up and bite the hand anyway, or they're going to break their thumb. You cannot really do it that way. And he's just using stuffed animals, all right? There are no real dogs. And you can even see with these people practicing. The thumb is going to get broken and they're going to get bitten anyway, or the dog is going to come up. You can't just brace yourself like that. And even in these videos, there is one video here. There's so many where someone's even questioning, like, how are you going to prevent them from biting? And he's given some really weird explanations that you could just hold your arm up higher and put your hand over here and just brace yourself. This is not going to work, and it can be proven, all right? He the things he missed from stills is we were supposed to have the palm up, and they're supposed to, like judo, step out of the way. All right. And, and mess up the dog's center of gravity and do that again and lower the dog. But I'm getting off track here. The point is the guy's unethically taken information, at least from me. I don't know who else he really was doing it for, misrepresenting it without telling me, putting people at risk, and again, showing discrimination against trainers like me. I'm not invited to any of these conferences, right? Even though I was doing it. What's also disturbing is the trainer that he paired up with, whose name is, I don't even have her name, and I don't think it really matters because she's really not the president. I mean, maybe we'll see it. Let me have the page. She's talking about break-and sticks, all right? So it seems as if they're just taking information and Googling information and presenting this as safe information, talking bad about other trainers. Trish McMillan, I think it's because there's now so many people have learned this. She's talking about how to use a break-and stick. Again, this is something, as professionals, we're trying to keep dogs safe, all right? She worked in a shelter. Lots of people work in the shelter. But does that really make you an expert if you really haven't, done anything? And it's obvious when you play this. I'm not going to play that she did Google searches on how to use it. And perhaps, because she shows a video, that she practiced on a stuffed animal, all right? It shows a
assessing normal dogs.
Stuffed animal getting bitten by the dog. I'm sorry. Here we go. And that's biting with the front of its mouth on a stuffed animal. And then she's talking about using a break-and stick in a way that, one, is not likely going to work to remove a dog quick. Two, is dangerous to the dog, is going to break the dog's teeth. She said you might break the dog's teeth. I'm guessing she did break a dog's teeth. And the only time she ever probably did it in a real dog. But she's saying to put a break-in teeth behind, I should have put a visual up here, behind the canine teeth of a dog that's biting, to put a stick and twist it while it's biting, and it might break the dog's teeth. Yes, it might break the dog's teeth. But the problem is, not only does it not go there, and in every reference, and I have watched literally hundreds of videos of break-and sticks being used on real dogs, like professionals should, if they have not witnessed it or done it themselves in different ways to know how to do it and how it works, is if a dog is not biting a stuffed animal and is just not biting with the front teeth, you are not going to be able to put a break-and stick anyway behind their canine teeth, because all of that area is going to be buried in another dog's flesh. And even if you get a break-and stick in there, there's the soft flesh of the dog on the underside of the teeth, and you're not going to be able to pry the dog's mouth open, or you're not going to be able to trigger the gag reflex. The only motivation that a dog might release is the pain, yes, from you breaking its teeth. There's nothing that makes sense that would even work. And if you're not doing this like on a border collie or something, and it's like a pit bull, a fighting line pit bull, even breaking the teeth is probably not going to make the dog necessarily let go. Where you're supposed to put it, behind, when the dog is biting, all right, the very back molars, it's going to be open. The very back of the mouth is going to be the area where there's going to be no body parts inside of. That's going to be a little bit open because the dog, the rest of its mouth is actually biting down on something. So there is a little space, and you go back there and there are no teeth back there, and you can either use the gag reflex dependent on the tool or use mechanical torsion to twist it open. Anyway, the only reason why I mention this is what these IAABC trainers are doing. They are not going out and asking maybe like an ex-reformed pit bull fighter how to teach how to do a break and stick. They're not asking someone who is actually working with aggressive dogs in mass how to do anything. They're kind of doing Google searches and calling themselves experts, renowned experts, going on the news, doing interviews with like newspapers and stuff like that. And in the meantime, putting down trainers that are using punishment, all right, and they're using punishment too, not even to go into it. That's that's a really separate part to things, all right. Not even gonna go into this, all right. This was the late Sophia Yin, who was also doing. I don't want to talk bad about someone who's passed away, but I believe she was a really good person. But I just put it over here to show that, she's basically jerking the heck out of a dog on a gentle leader and saying it's not training, saying it's an emergency situation because there's a dog a block away still. So it's okay. But trainers that are working much more gently on animals with different tools that are designed to use less force are being abusive. And by the way, these organizations ignore real scientific studies and just use quotes from a veterinary behaviorist to prove that that things are wrong. All right. Let's see. We're gonna go on. Okay. My interaction with Mike Shikasio sort of ended up a few years later, didn't interact with him much. He asked if I could be on a podcast, right? I guess it helps with credibility to be an aggression expert if you could bring on people talk about aggression. Even though these organizations talk about trainers as basically abusive and will kick you out if you're doing what I'm doing, he wanted me on his show to talk about aggression because it's going to help him. But he did coach me not to talk about the tools because it's not going to work with his users, or that it's not going to resonate with his listeners. Remember, all right, what we're talking about here. These are the people that are giving information to the public, and it's more about his listeners. This is kind of typical what's going on, what's going to make money, what he's allowed to say, what he's not allowed to say. I'm just showing the email interaction. I also want to show that right up into I just had a fallout. This is 2023. He was still, even though at this point he has thousands of followers, my guess, and he teaches people all over the world how to use, he works with all these positive trainers. He was still, hey Mike, hope all is well. Do you happen to have any suggestions for a trainer like you in Rhode Island or even Massachusetts? I have a past client with a German Shepherd dog displaying protection. So I'm recommended trainers that train like me, okay, to him still in 2023. And this should tell you something. Even though they're talking bad about these tools, privately, they don't even think that they're bad, okay? That they don't even think that they're bad. And basically what ends up happening, because I'm not like following every word Mike Shikasio says, is I find out that even though he's doing these things, that he is publicly saying that if he had the chance, he would ban e-collars in a moment, and he uses an example, just like, he's using stuffed animals. He uses an imaginary person named Bob in a scenario where the guy uses it wrong, which doesn't make, and then this imaginary kid in the house gets broken, which gets bitten, which I've never seen this scenario ever happen in my whole career. But we gotta know the whole situation here. All right. This is the organizations that pay him. These are their position statements, all right? That's what they want to do. I know he doesn't believe that, and he has to say these things. There's no way, because why would he be referring to me and other trainers like me that he hasn't even met that specifically use those tools instead of sending to the other places? So I had a little bit of a fallout with them. And instead, not even into Victoria Stilwell. Same thing with Victoria Stilwell, all right? You guys can watch in another post. She came just to show this is a similar organization. They work together to make money. She solicited help from me, like Mike Shikasio. She said she's not against tools. But she told me not to show the tools on her TV program, referred people to me. It's in episodes, her referring people to me, asked me to come back for another episode. And it wasn't until the episodes came out and Iaabc members basically said that they're not going to be paying her for this and that she publicly said, oh, we shouldn't use trainers like Mike DeBruzzo, all right? Now, again, we're saying this because she has a school. These are the trainers that are recommended from the veterinary behaviorists and veterinarians and stuff like that, and are actively promoting against trainers like me, even though in real life they know there is nothing wrong because all of these trainers have witnessed the training happen and have never had a problem with it, and will never bring attention to the fact that it can be done the right way. This brings to Dr. Edguardo Fernandez. This is actually very, very important, all right? Because of all these, and repeatedly through my career, I'm discriminated against, I had to act upon the Dr. Edguardo Fernandez thing. One of the certifications that I value very highly is a Lima certification that was given to me. You know, I took a course with Stephen Lindsay himself, who was the creator of Lima, and study his work. And it's not easy. He has vast work. He has 1,500 pages of information that took him a couple of decades to put out. And Lima is a competency for humane training, basically. Now, what happened is there's a guy, Dr. Edguardo Fernandez, who'd be on these podcasts, is also at Mike Shikasio. My guess is he wanted to get in on the action, and he makes something called a life model, which is supposed to be a replacement for Lima. So again, we have Stephen Lindsay, who spent decades and decades of his life researching and coming together with a work of how to make humane decisions for a dog. This guy comes along and makes a couple of pages, says it's a replacement, and grossly misrepresents what Stephen Lindsay's work is about. Obviously did not even read it. Even Stephen Lindsay himself, I presented in a video, what is he doing? This is wrong. This is nothing about what Lima is. Even Stephen Lindsay himself said, thank you also for the time spent setting the record straight concerning the way Fernandez misrepresented, distorted, and unfairly criticized the Lima principle. I have links to it. You can see for yourself. It is clear. It is easy. You do not need a team of people to see that he's completely misrepresenting stuff. I'm just taking quotes right out of the book that is completely opposite of what the guy is really stating. And then on top of it, not only after he put it out, and this is published in a scientific journal, and it says that there is no conflict of interest, we have something allegedly, which should be investigated, looks like conflict of interest fraud, right? So if you put out something that seems to be false, and immediately after you put it out, you're getting paid by the same organizations that Mike Shikasio is to do webinars, and you have to sign a form agreeing to we do not agree to punishment, this, and that. It's a conflict of interest, all right? Most people recognize that as conflict of interest. If you're a scientist and then you are going to profit if your results say something specific in your favor, it is a conflict of interest. But how does this even happen? Like, aren't these scientific journals supposed to be making sure these things don't happen? They should, but guess who is the editor-in-chief of the scientific journal? Someone named Karen Overall, editor-in-chief of the Journal of Veterinary Behavior, where it was published. Why would she not fact-check Dr. Fernandez? She must know what Lima is and who Stephen Lindsay is, because she even has a book that was a competitor to his book. Doesn't she know? Of course she knows, all right? There's no way she doesn't know. There's no way she doesn't fact check. But the thing is, it's too much to go into, but I have a link, all right? There's a link you can see. Karen Overall does seminars for veterinarians, for veterinary professionals. I attended one where she specifically says that if you send a dog to a dog obedience trainer that uses anything that could be defined as punishment, the dog is more likely to need to be euthanized and failed. She is saying that. I can prove it. She's also misquoting science and bending things for her to her agenda. All right, that is how these things get slipped through the cracks. And sure enough, too, she also gets paid through the IAABC and all these places for doing webinars and stuff like that, because they need to get continuing education units which are consistent of these people that are being very unethical in order to hold a market share of doing webinars to these trainers that pay to get in the organization to use these letters without any formal hands-on training, and they just keep paying these, I call them scam artists, to do these webinars, alleged scam artists to do these webinars. Now, just to show this is 15 years later, even after I was having an IAABC member, contacting veterinary offices and telling people not to do business with me, contacting Victoria Stilwell, constantly trying to sabotage my career. When I put out a very well thought out video, factually based, it is very clean. All the information is there, which I have the right to do. I removed the name. Like I said, I don't like to use names if it doesn't matter. I blurred everything out, just what they represent. It's what they represent that really matters. Is another member, someone who is a Karen Pryor graduate, and these letters mean they're certified through the IAABC as a behaviorist, contacted the school that employs me, where I teach animal science, with nothing behind it at all besides just these are bullying, harassing tactics, trying to punish anyone who speaks up against them. All right, Mike DeBruzzo is publicly engaging in inappropriate and unethical behaviors that is actively hurting the school's reputation and, more importantly, your students. All right, I am not the only one that this happens to. All right, she's using the word "we," by the way, meaning she's not representing herself. All right, who is we? It is these organizations, and she was a behaviorist, which remember, that doesn't necessarily mean any type of education. You could get these titles by just paying for their webinars, but she happened to work for a veterinary behaviorist group. I blurted out because it doesn't matter, all right? Because if someone goes after them, if you don't go after these organizations, including the American Veterinary Society of animal behaviorists themselves, this just keeps happening over and over and over again. This is just some of the stuff that's happened to me over 15 years. But she's saying we do find it quite disturbing that an individual this misinformed about the animal sciences is employed by this school to teach the subject matter, okay? So this is what happens, okay? This is what happens when you challenge these organizations. And these organizations do nothing to protect people from getting attacked. The only person that I know of that has actually been kicked out of the organization was the only person who was actually also certified by Stephen Lindsay himself on Lima principle. And even though there's other members that use punishment and call it something else and are talking bad about other members, and it's all over the place, the one guy who was trying to help other members in a forum post by saying, remember, they're euthanizing tons of animals for even like separation anxiety. The one guy who's like, listen, you do not have to have the dog in a crate all day because it's jumping on the counter. He basically told on a forum post that it's okay. You can startle a dog for trying to take something, off of a countertop if you teach the dog when it happens and you reward the dog for doing the right thing and it allows the dog to have freedom. He's talking about animal welfare. And this organization kicked him out because he was challenging the way that they rewrote Lima. Because Stephen Lindsay's Lima allows a trainer to do what they are trained to do, to use what they have to use to make decisions for the dog to have a better quality of life. And it wasn't fallen into how they kept rewriting Stephen Lindsay's work to fit their own code of ethics, because now even though he is certified to talk about Lima, they kicked him out for not supporting their rewritten version of Lima. And he did nothing wrong. He never harmed anyone. He never harmed another business person. He never talked bad about a person in his life. He never had anyone consider him of abuse. This is what ends up happening. There's posts on this, all right? So at this one page, because it's hours and hours worth of stuff, there are links that go more into the detail. If you do want to know the details of what's going on, what happened with Dr. Fernandez. If you do want to know more about what Karen overall is doing, there's a whole post on that, all right? If you do want to know the unethical actions that they've done against one of their members, there's a whole post on there, and there's a video, and there's a link. If you want to see how they're also just be fraudulent, how they're saying it's bad that I use a prong collar gently and show people how to do it, but it's okay if they change the name to something that was originally was marketed as something more effective and more aversive than a prong collar, and change its name to a gentle leader, that suddenly this does not represent punishment, and they can market themselves as training force-free or without punishment and badmouth other trainers, all right? I couldn't use something like that, training like protection dogs and stuff like that, all right? And I did use these, right, in my practice. I was just doing other things that I could not humanely do the training without different tools. There's different tools for different purposes, just like an e-collar. The e-collars of today, right, I don't have to say this, they have like over 100 levels, and they're precise. So if someone knows what they're doing, they can use perfect timing and not harm a dog. And you cannot accidentally correct a dog with an e-collar, like what happens on something like this. The dog gets scared or lunges and it gets whiplashed by these things, all right? There's ways to do these. There's no proof that any trainer is doing anything abusive that is actually educated and takes their time to do this, all right? So for any dog trainers that are really watching this, remember, this is designed for countries like Singapore. Like if you're in Singapore, I know there are trainers in Singapore that are going to trade schools over here and are spending a lot of money learning how to be ethical, humane trainers to serve the public, that are going to go to Singapore, and you're going to have places like the IAABC that are looking to be trusted as public servants. You need to know about that, and you need to educate your government, because they are going to decide who gets recommended as a dog trainer. And this is happening in other countries. We need to, if you're in the United States, you got to keep discussions open with your organizations, all right? We have an organization over here. We have National Association of Dog Obedience Instructors. It's not like IAABC where anyone can just join. You can join. Mike Shikasio, for instance, he could join, and just by being good politics and saying what people want to hear, was able to become president. You don't have to have an education to do that, all right? And then you just buy their webinars and practice on stuffed animals, and you could become a certified trainer. All right. Places like Nataway, these are associations for dog obedience instructors, and every member has to prove themselves first to even be a member. If you are a member of an organization like that, you should be working with your organization and start collecting information of what's happening to you. Same thing, IACP that are not attacking other trainers, are being ethical, are not practicing educational gatekeeping, where you're not even allowing your members to learn information, so the insiders can basically, and the veterinary behaviorists can control from the top down how they're getting paid. All right. Collect information and screenshots of any actions that raise unethical flags. Share this link. If you know any lawmaker, anyone in leadership positions that wants to talk to me, I am not selling anything. Even though I am not a professional dog trainer more, I am a teacher. I do not need money from anything in this world. I'm looking out for the profession. Even though I did consulting, I am never going to take another client to do consultation or advertise it unless there's changes. I'm not having them pay me to help and go when I know, at least in the United States, there's no one keeping the veterinary behaviorists who have no oversight in check, who are feeding these fraudulent informations, which feed them back for profit. There is no one checking on them. There is nowhere to go. There's nowhere to report it to, all right? The only hope is trainers have to get together, and you need to get the Fair Trade Commission involved, all right? Unless that happens, I am not ever taking any clients, so don't think I'm trying to sell anything. It is down. It is down indefinitely unless there are changes. It is not fair. It is not right. All right. This is happening to a lot of dog trainers, a lot of amazing dog trainers. So anyone that wants to pick apart anything that's in my post, I do not represent every trainer. All right. I know dozens of trainers that do things completely different from me. Anything that's on here that are definitely qualified and are looking out for owners and their dogs and achieving better welfare in life for these animals. Okay, so trainers, stick together, and I hope there will be changes. Thank you.